What happens when a millionaire's wife thinks her money gives her the right to humiliate a teenage girl in front of dozens of witnesses? This 42-year-old woman made a choice that would destroy her reputation forever, but justice would be served in a way that shocked the entire internet. I'm Judge Frank Caprio, and in my 35 years on this bench, I've seen every type of defendant. But Valentina Cross was different, not because of her designer clothes or millions, but because of what she did to innocent 16-year-old Kesha Williams. What you're about to hear will make you question everything you think you know about privilege, power, and cruelty. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this case became the most viewed courtroom video in Rhode Island history. Over 12 million people watched what happened when Valentina Cross met justice face to face. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story needs to reach every corner of the world. It was a cold Tuesday morning when the bailiff handed me the case file. Valentina Cross, age 42, charged with harassment and creating a public disturbance at Providence Place Mall. The victim was Kesha Williams, a 16-year-old honor student shopping for her mother's birthday present when Valentina Cross decided to make her life a nightmare. The security footage told the whole story. Kesha, a petite African-American teenager, was browsing when she accidentally bumped into Valentina Cross near the jewelry counter. What happened next was captured on cameras and would become viral evidence of how ugly prejudice gets when wrapped in designer clothes and backed by millions. Valentina Cross wasn't just any defendant. Standing 5 feet 9 inches with an imposing presence, she had intricate tattoos covering both arms and climbing up her neck, contrasting sharply with her $3,000 Chanel blazer. Her blonde hair was pulled back severely, emphasizing angular features and diamond earrings catching the lights. But it wasn't her appearance that made her dangerous, it was her absolute certainty that wealth made her untouchable. The incident lasted 7 minutes. 7 minutes of pure cruelty that would haunt a teenage girl and expose the rot beneath Providence's wealthy elite. Security cameras captured Valentina's voice echoing through the store as she screamed at Kesha, calling her clumsy, careless, and worse. "People like you need to learn respect," Valentina had shouted, her tattooed arms gesturing aggressively as Kesha backed away in terror. "Your kind doesn't belong in stores like this. Go back to where you came from and learn some manners before you touch things you can't afford." The words hung like poison as shoppers stared and teenage Kesha's eyes filled with tears. But Valentina wasn't finished. She followed Kesha through 3 different stores, making loud comments about these people and how some families don't teach their children proper behavior. Mall security eventually intervened, but not before dozens of witnesses recorded the harassment on their phones. By evening, the videos were viral. By midnight, Valentina Cross was a hashtag. By morning, she was facing criminal charges. When Kesha Williams' mother called police the next day, her voice was breaking. "My daughter is a straight-A student. She volunteers at church, helps with younger kids, and has never been in trouble. This woman terrorized her for 7 minutes because of the color of her skin. I want justice." 3 weeks later, Valentina Cross would learn that money can't buy your way out of consequences. The morning Valentina Cross entered my courtroom, she walked in like she owned the building. Her attorney strode beside her, carrying an expensive briefcase. Her charcoal gray suit fit her large frame perfectly, emphasizing her height and presence. The tattoos on her neck were visible above her silk blouse, dark designs writhing under the lights. What struck me most was her expression, complete indifference, as if these proceedings were beneath her consideration. "Mrs. Cross," I began, "you're charged with harassment and creating a public disturbance at Providence Place Mall. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," she said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences. "This whole thing is ridiculous." The word ridiculous hung in the courtroom air like a challenge. I set down my pen slowly. "Ridiculous, Mrs. Cross. Can you elaborate on what you find ridiculous about harassment charges?" Valentina's jaw tightened, and I saw a flash of the anger that had terrorized Kesha Williams. "Your Honor, I was shopping at an expensive store where I spend thousands of dollars every month. Some kid bumped into me and had an attitude when I tried to tell her to be more careful. If that's harassment, then customer service is dead in this country. Customer service. She had just characterized 7 minutes of racial harassment as a customer service issue. The gallery began to murmur, and I noticed several African-American families who had come to support Kesha Williams. "Mrs. Cross," I said, opening the case file, "I have testimony from 17 different witnesses, 5 store employees, and multiple security camera angles. Would you like to review the evidence before you continue characterizing this as a customer service issue?" For the first time, Valentina Cross looked uncertain. "Your Honor, people exaggerate. Everyone wants to be part of drama these days, especially when there's a chance to sue someone with money." The accusation that 17 witnesses had conspired to frame her revealed everything about Valentina Cross's worldview. It was time for her to meet reality. "Mrs. Cross," I announced, "I'd like to play the security footage for the court." The courtroom monitor flickered to life. The footage was crystal clear, with excellent audio capturing every word of Valentina's 7-minute tirade. We watched as Kesha accidentally bumped into Valentina, immediately apologized and tried to continue shopping. We watched Valentina's face transform from minor annoyance to active malice as she began her verbal assault. The most heartbreaking moment came when Kesha, tears streaming down her face, tried to apologize again. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to bother you. I was just shopping for my mom's birthday." Instead of accepting the apology, Valentina's response was to follow the girl through the store, continuing her harassment as other shoppers watched in horror. When the video ended, the courtroom was completely silent. Even Valentina's expensive attorney looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Cross," I said, "you've just watched yourself terrorize a 16-year-old girl for 7 consecutive minutes. Do you have anything to say?" Valentina Cross's response would transform her from a local news story into an international symbol of privileged cruelty. Instead of showing remorse, she looked directly at me and said, "Your Honor, you don't understand the pressure of dealing with people who don't respect boundaries. I pay taxes, I spend money, I contribute to this community. If I can't shop in peace without being bumped into by kids who don't watch where they're going, then what's the point of success?" The gallery erupted in shocked gasps as people processed what they'd heard. Valentina Cross had just told a sitting judge that her wealth gave her the right to harass children. "Mrs. Cross," I said, standing up and walking around to face her directly, "before I respond to your statement, I'd like to tell you about Kesha Williams, the young woman you terrorized for 7 minutes. Valentina stood with her arms crossed, radiating the same arrogance that had carried her through 42 years of believing money made her better than everyone else. "Kesha Williams is a junior at Classical High School," I began. "She maintains a 3.8 GPA while working part-time at a nursing home to help support her family. Her father died in military service 3 years ago, and her mother works 2 jobs to keep their family together. Kesha volunteers at church every Sunday, tutoring younger children." I paused, watching Valentina's face for any sign of recognition that she had targeted someone whose character far exceeded her own. There was none. "The day you terrorized her," I continued, "Kesha was shopping for her mother's birthday present with money she had saved from 4 months of work. $23.16 that she had carefully budgeted to buy a small piece of jewelry. Now I saw the first crack in Valentina's composure. She shifted her weight, the first sign that the human cost of her cruelty was penetrating her wall of self-justification. "Mrs. Cross, while you were screaming at this exceptional young woman, she was trying to decide between a $15 bracelet and a $20 pair of earrings. While you were making racist comments about people like her, she was calculating whether she had enough money left for wrapping paper. While you were terrorizing her, she was spending her grocery money to show love for her mother." The courtroom was silent, except for quiet crying in the gallery. I looked out and saw Kesha Williams's mother, surrounded by friends and community members supporting her family's search for justice. "But here's what makes your behavior most despicable, Mrs. Cross. After you finished humiliating Kesha Williams, after you made her cry in front of dozens of strangers, do you know what she did?" Valentina shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Your Honor." She went home and apologized to her mother for not buying the birthday present. This 16-year-old girl felt guilty that your cruelty had prevented her from completing her shopping trip. She blamed herself for your behavior, Mrs. Cross. The weight of this revelation hit the courtroom like a physical force. The contrast between Kesha's character and Valentina's behavior was so stark it seemed like a parable about the difference between true class and purchased privilege. But Valentina Cross wasn't ready to accept responsibility. Your Honor, I feel bad that the girl was upset, but I can't be responsible for everyone's feelings. I work hard for my money. My husband and I employ dozens of people. If being successful means I have to apologize for expecting basic courtesy in public spaces, then we're punishing achievement. The silence that followed was deafening. Valentina Cross had just heard the story of a teenage girl's character, sacrifice, and dignity, and her response was to defend her own right to harass children. What I did next would become the most watched judicial response in Rhode Island history, viewed over 12 million times and shared across every social media platform. Because sometimes when someone reveals themselves to be irredeemably cruel, the only appropriate response is absolute justice. Mrs. Cross, I said, my voice carrying the full weight of 35 years spent defending the vulnerable against the powerful, you have just demonstrated why wealth without character is not success, it's a threat to civilized society. I walked closer to the defendant's table. You terrorized a 16-year-old girl whose character exceeds yours in every measurable way. You followed her through multiple stores making racist comments. You traumatized dozens of other shoppers, and when confronted with evidence, your response is to defend your right to treat children as obstacles to your shopping experience. Valentina's attorney finally stood up, recognizing his client was destroying herself with every word. Your Honor, if we could discuss a plea arrangement. Counselor, I interrupted, never taking my eyes off Valentina. Your client has made her position clear. She believes her wealth exempts her from basic human decency. I'm about to show her how wrong she is. The sentence I was about to deliver would become a landmark in accountability for privileged defendants. Because in my courtroom, money doesn't buy immunity from consequences, it makes those consequences more necessary.